Today's date is February 26, 2025 at 6 p.m. And this is a Columbus City Council meeting. First call to order is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just thinking here. For everybody in the public, did you sign up on the sheet coming in? No?
Can you please?
If you get a chance, it'd be nice, because when we write the minutes, who's here and whatever. Thank you. If you could before you leave or whatever. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda itself. And I'm going to make a motion that I move to approve the agenda for February 26, 2025 City Council meeting. Is there a second?
This is Janet, I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. Start with you, Jennifer.
Jenny, yay.
Scott, aye.
Ron, aye.
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
We'll go on to item number 2B, I should say item B, amended consent agenda. I'm just going to state right off the bat that the only item on this thing will be the approval of the bill payments, pages 1 through 2. Items 2 through 7 will be tabled until another meeting, as there's some issues with a number of them. Anybody would like, well, I'll go right on to the motion. I move to approve the amended consent agenda as presented in items 1 and listed as a supplemental bill list, which was distributed as a handout to the council for this meeting. Everybody get that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Scott, I'll second.
Any discussion? Having none? Rob, you want to start the vote?
Yeah, Rob, aye.
Janet, I.
Scott, aye.
Jenny, aye.
And Ron, aye. We'll go to item C, presentations and items for council action. We'll start off with public open forum. Anybody in the office that would like, anybody in the building that would like to step forward and make a comment or statement? Having none, we'll close that, but how about on Zoom? Anybody out there that'd like to make a comment?
Just one, no comment, sir.
Okay, and we'll close the public forum. Number 2, Jack, you want to read senior/community center rental policy, pages 3 through 11?
Thank you, Ron. The rental policy for the Senior Community Center has been discussed on several past meetings. There were edits recommended to that. Those have been incorporated in your attachment. There are some questions, however, that remain outstanding that I just want to get some direction from council on. And it's something we may want to get this for definitions, fees, and one other thing that we want to add here or get some, and have this, we can discuss it tonight or carry it over to the work meeting on March the 4th. So with that, we've got a section under definitions that was recommended that we add. We've only got 3 terms under there now, and I want to know if we want that expanded or if there's anything else that we need to put in there under definitions. And if we do, then we can do those and develop those for consideration at the work meeting. Also, if you go on to the application form, there's the matter of fees and liability insurance that we need to get some direction on as to how we want to do that. So want to review those quickly or just push them all off to the work meeting, that's fine. But those are the 3 things that are outstanding after all the edits have been made to this document.
This is Janet. So I was thinking one of the things that we had asked for is for staff to look at some of the other policies from surrounding communities. Did you guys have a chance to do that? Because I think that'd be really helpful to see.
We've incorporated, actually, we rewrote some of this and added some of those things that we thought were applicable to this. has updates and improvements to what we had. We can certainly bring those at a work meeting because we have those from the 2022 times when this was done. Most of them were fairly close to this, but there are some differences between them.
So you didn't do it recently, it was from what Lori did in 2022?
No, it's the 2022 information that we had.
Okay, do it recently, because some of the examples from 2022 were not very helpful, and I think there was also a suggestion when we talked about it back then to look at even some of the fees and things that, like a hotel would charge or something like that, or, the library, or see what the policies are there, because those are the other places, at least for meetings that people are going to.
And, I think the good comparison, like you say, are the fee schedules. I think the fee schedules are probably things that what we have here we need to look at because we want to encourage the use. We don't want the fee schedules excessive,
Right.
so that discourage people not to use this.
Right.
So we can put that together and bring that up at the work meeting. And the other thing was the liability insurance. We discussed that. I did get and attach a response from our insurance agent. And of course, he recommends that we basically do require liability insurance for any user. But at the same time, we have to look at this, and maybe there's some users we want to exclude because even that requirement alone may say, hey, it's not worth it. And there's some groups that there's little risk. Whatever happens here, we're covered by the league. The city is covered by the league if anything happens. The group is not. So it's something I think bears further discussion to see how we want to handle that.
Well, it would seem that at minimum, there should be some statement on the reservation form or whatever they sign up that the liability, their coverage is not, how do I want to say it? They need to cover their own liability.
Yeah. Actually, there are a few statements in there in the bullet points, but those may need to be expanded a little bit.
I was thinking about what people might use this space for. And, I had a hard time coming up with any real risk if somebody was just having a meeting. They're having a homeowners association meeting, or there was, a garden club that was meeting or something like that. But even with, I don't know, a birthday party for grandma, they're not using the kitchen. They're bringing in their own stuff. Anybody can trip walking up our steps. So I don't know that that's any more likely in the event of this. So since we're not going to let people use the grounds and we're not going to let them use the kitchen, I just had a hard time coming up with anything that would increase risk over and above what we normally would have just by anybody walking through our doors.
Well, and I think the major things under consideration is if there were alcohol involved and they got a permit for that, we'd want them to do the liability insurance coverage for that. Or a group of over a certain size, but there's no science to that. It's an arbitrary number. If you had 100 people in here, maybe you'd want to require them to have some liability insurance. Some of this liability insurance, if you buy it for a day policy, is not overly expensive, but it's something I think we need to take a real close look at because I'd like to limit it to cover those things that you mentioned so we don't discourage use of the facility or put obstacles in the way of using it.
Right. I don't know, Bill, do you have any recommendation on that? I know you would rather that we have it, but.
Yeah, that's the easy answer.
I could predict that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, council members, I think the couple of things, it's always good to get it. I think that if we can make it easy so that we have 2 or 3 sources with the forms, the contact, it is relatively inexpensive for particularly if you identify that they're not going to be using the kitchen, they're not going to be serving alcohol and those types of things. Then we just say, here's the number, here's the form, it's $250 or it's $150. So of course, as legal counsel, I'm going to prefer that option, but I also, as the administrator said, this property is covered by insurance. Mm-hmm. So, in the worst case, there's a waiver process for groups of a certain size or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think that it can be set up in a way that it's relatively easy to obtain. And then it's just a matter of you make the contact, you fill out the form, you pay the $150 or whatever it is. But we help them with that because it helps us to have the coverage.
So Jim, a follow-up question on that. So if we're requiring the insurance and a certificate of insurance naming us as co-insured, what we're getting is indemnification so that that suit may never go to the League of Minnesota Cities, potentially? Is that the benefit?
That's the benefit, Councilmember. Yes, that's the benefit, and there's always a deductible when something goes to the league, and so we don't want to be exposed to that deductible. We don't want to have the claims, history working against the city. But again, I think we can explore how easy it is to obtain that, and then we can direct folks into the right. That can be part of here's the application, here's the contact, here's the pricing. And then people can make a decision about whether this is the right place for them to be.
So in essence, if someone does come on the property and slips and falls because it's icy out there, with a certificate of insurance, we're avoiding that going to our insurance company and potentially paying out of pocket for a deductible.
That's the idea. There's always the subrogation issues of, they tend to point to each other. But what happens is, like, for instance, we had a diesel spill on Hornsby, and because the primary cause, the driver who was the primary cause of the spill was not insured at all, we couldn't get anybody to talk to us because, there was nobody to subrogate to. So again, it's best practices. I can see that at some point that you may say to the administrator, you can waive it under certain cases, or if it ends up being more costly than we think it is. It's really driven by the activity. The agent's going to say, what's going on in there? Well, there's going to be, 50 seniors playing, bingo. Well, okay, we're not too concerned. So I think it's good to explore it, and then maybe, if it doesn't seem as cost effective as we think it is, then bring it back to the council and say, do you want to just, waive the requirement altogether?
Anything, Rob? No. Should we put this off till the workshop?
Yeah, I have one more question, though, and we talked about the need for some definitions in here. Are there any other things you want us to look up to see if we can develop definitions for any words that you think may have multiple meanings or need clarification?
Are you asking if there's any other terms that need to be defined?
Yes.
I would say one of them is the political group.
Is the what?
You have a line here that says use by any political group shall require specific approval by the city council. I think you made that change because I brought up that we've rented to caucuses in the past. But I don't know, you might want to just define what a political group is. Caucus is a pretty straightforward example, but, is a campaign committee, if somebody was running for office and they had a campaign committee and they wanted to be here, is that a political group? So I think it might be good to make that definition so then they know when they have to build in time to get to the council first. I mean, I don't think of a campaign committee as a political group, but some people might.
And Bill, is there a dictionary that has legal definitions for some of these terms?
Black's Law Dictionary.
Okay.
Yep. So,
That's good.
yep,
We do
easy to
that.
consult.
And then I just think we talked about whether or not I know you gave like a list of priorities here, but we also talked about whether you'd waive fees for certain types of organizations if they were a 501c3 or, some other nonprofit but I don't see anything in there. So I think that's another thing to look into, maybe what other cities do. Or if there's a time limit, like any meetings less than 2 hours don't require a fee, something like that. Because otherwise, I don't know how you designate between a meeting and an event. A meeting can go 8 hours long.
Yeah, and if we can avoid it, I would rather not put a time limit on these. I don't think we're going to have a double booking at any time, or it's first come, first serve.
No, I mean in terms of what you charge people. So if somebody calls and they say, yeah, I'm having a meeting, so I want to reserve it for 8 hours. And another person says, yeah, I want to have a birthday party for grandma. It's going to be like 2 hours. And they have to pay $200 and some for their event, and the person with the 8-hour meeting pays $50.
And, you know, maybe we limit the time of the meetings can be held in here. I think somebody that wants to rent it for an 8-hour event is going to have to, to me, that's an excessive time to do it. And that would also probably limit what we could do. Maybe we could have 2 meetings in a day, one in the morning or one in the evening.
Well, people can rent this during the weekend when there's nothing else going on. So I could see someone having an 8-hour meeting if it was for an organization. Maybe they're doing strategic planning or something. Those typically go 6-8 hours.
I think the only issue might be overlap and being, I know that on, under, or right above the access to the facility, it talks about acceptable condition. Maybe really defining what that is and breaking that down and just say, you know, is it in the use that you found it or something more, or less specific, I guess, and just easier to understand, because, you know, are we going to have somebody come in and check between those 2 meetings? And maybe those are things we can table and talk about at our planning meeting.
And then just a question for Bill, is vaping considered smoking?
Is what?
Vaping considered smoking?
I believe it is.
Okay.
Generally.
From a legal standpoint?
yes.
So if you say no smoking, they know that that is inclusive, okay?
Yeah.
I thought there was a part in there where it said about vaping.
Yeah, Rob, you're right. There's 2 in here under the rules. It does mention vaping, and then under, it says smoking vaping.
Yeah, under general rules, right?
Yep. And then if you go to page 6 of our packet, page 3 of the document, smoking tobacco and alcohol use, it mentions vaping.
Yeah, and I'm looking on page
We're under
3 or 6 where it doesn't.
It doesn't say vaping,
Yeah, so it's
correct.
just not consistent.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I think that we should use a consistent term that includes both, just so it, because usually when it's dropped, then the question is, oh, apparently it doesn't apply here.
Right. And then I know some of the changes that I suggested aren't here, so I'm wondering whether or not I forgot to give them to you or they just didn't get in there. But I'm looking on page 4 or 7, depending on which number, to add glitter to the list of do not throw birdseed, confetti, or rice or glitter or glittery things, because there's nothing more annoying than seeing that glitter everywhere, and that's hard to clean up too. Parties might have glitter.
Okay, we'll take these back and try to get some further clarification, especially come up with some definitions of those terms, get some better comparisons on what costs are, discuss the cost a little bit more, and try to answer the insurance question at the work meeting then.
Sounds good. We can move on. Item 3, Resolution 25-03, authorizing gamble premise for Invisible Wounds Project, Incorporated, pages 12 through 16.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Invisible Wounds Foundation is a nonprofit 501c3 organization that supports innovative mental health treatment solution for service-related brain injuries and their symptoms for our veterans, first responders, and their families. The Invisible Wound Project has submitted a request to the City of Columbus to conduct raffles to support its mission of enhancing the lives of those who have served our country, provided public safety services. The Invisible Wounds Project proudly serves our military, police, fire, EMS, frontline medical staff, corrections, 9/11 dispatch, and their families that relates to mental wellness, PTSD, and suicides. The foundation submitted a Minnesota lawful gambling application to the city and the Gambling Control Board in 2022, and there were no issues with that application or the raffle. This group, through their local chapter in Forest Lake, is applying to conduct raffles on September 27th, 2025 at Running Aces, 15201 Zurich Street, Northeast Columbus, Minnesota. Minnesota Statute 34-213 requires the city approve by resolution and a 2/3 vote the approval of a gambling premise within its local jurisdiction prior to submitting the request to the Gambling Control Board. City Council is requested to approve Resolution 25-03, a resolution authorizing the Invisible Rooms Project to conduct raffles at the premise located at 15201 Zurich Street Northeast, Columbus, Minnesota, in accordance with the terms and requirements of the Minnesota Gambling Board.
Thank you, Jack. I guess we have Russ Haynes. Is that your name, Russ? On video?
Me.
Oh. Would you like to make any statement or comment?
Really love it if you would approve our application. But yes, we have been running Freedom Fest and Cruise for Heroes at Running Aces since, I think we've been there since 2014. And this year we're going to do a raffle. It'll be outdoors related items. So we're looking at a 4-wheeler, different things like that. We're not going to raffle off guns at this event at all or anything like that. So it's just going to be, family friendly type of stuff. And we would love your support in making this work.
Well, thank you, Russ. You get a pretty big turnout there, don't you?
Yeah, we get, throughout that day, we should have a couple thousand. So we're going to have a car show. We've got music in the parking lot. We've also got music on the track, of course. And then we have a barbecue contest that's going to be a part of it this year. So a bunch of different things.
Great. Anybody on the council have any questions?
No, I would just say I know a little bit about your organization, and you guys do great work, so I'm super happy. Are you in your new space, a relatively new space?
Yeah. Yes. Yep. We're doing a meeting here, and so yeah, you should come see it sometime. We're open Monday or Tuesday through Friday, 9 to 5. So stop in anytime and come check it out.
I'll take you up on that.
Where's that located?
Thank you. We're in Forest Lake, right off of Highway 61. It's 840 Lake Street South. So if you know where the old Willowbrook Church used to be in Forest Lake, we actually took over that space and then we split it in half. So it's our space, and then now it's Mike's Discount Foods is next door.
There's been a lot of things. Well, that's great. You're close to us anyway. Any questions?
Yeah.
Comments?
No, thank you for all you do. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, we do.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion. I move to approve Resolution 25-03, authorizing a gambling premise for the Invisible Wounded Projects Incorporated for raffles to be held at 15201 Zurich Street, Columbus, Minnesota on September 27th, 2025.
It's Rob, I'll second that.
Any comments, questions, discussion? Having none, Jennifer, want to vote?
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Janet, aye.
Rob, aye.
And Ron, aye. Thank you very much, Russ, for all your work and dedication to this project.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
You too.
We'll go on to item number 4, city banner design approval and website discussion, pages 17 to 21.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. In September of 2019, the city formed an advisory group to freshen up Columbus's brand to best align it with the sentiments of the community. Documentation shows that the committee conducted a minimum of 2 meetings, which resulted in the distribution of a community survey in which 70 responses were received and reviewed. At the conclusion of the surveys, the committee identified a motto of just north enough. This newly identified motto led to broader discussions of billboards and advertising by the Economic Development Authority. Veto Design generated some design concepts based on the motto and survey feedback for the city. COVID-19 pandemic and staff changes at City Hall shifted priorities for this project. Now that the environment has stabilized, there is a desire to move the project forward and decide on the proposed concepts. Additional information for council consideration is that government websites are required by federal law to be ADA compliant. A recent review of the current Columbus website identified non-compliant components which will need to be addressed. Fortunately, the city's existing contract with Catalyst, which extends through 2027, includes a website upgrade at no additional cost. This website upgrade requires a redesign, which was previously discussed with Catalyst by staff members who are no longer city employees. No formal website redesign was approved or authorized at that time. A decision is needed on the website upgrade design elements for Catalyst to complete the upgrade. Not only does this provide the city a chance to address the ADA compliance issues and the pending upgrade, but it also provides an opportunity to include any new elements of the just north enough tagline or motto in our new design. Any new design approved by this website upgrade would be in place through the duration of the contract unless the city agreed to pay additional expenses for additional design changes beyond the already paid for upgrade. Staff recommend council review and consider approval of a banner design and provide staff further direction on the website upgrade. Banners designs are attached in your packet, and Councilmember Hegland probably has some more information as she was involved in the initial stages of this design.
Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, I do want to fill in a few gaps in information. So, Rob, you might remember this was the branding committee that Shelley led. And Ron was on it. I was on it, as well as a number of other folks. There were a couple of business owners that were on it. Aaron Bendessen at Running Aces was on it, along with the person that was working with him at that time, and it was not Olivia, and I don't remember her name. Jaquel Hader, who was the EDA director for the county, attended all those meetings and was there. So it was a wide variety of groups, and as Aaron said, there was a survey that got sent out, and then we also did a survey at one of the Columbus gatherings to get feedback on, how people viewed the city, what they liked, what they didn't like, all that sort of stuff. And this is how we came up with the sort of the just north enough and the feel that we were trying to get at. So the EDA approved a couple of billboard designs a few months ago that were based on this work. And at the time we were, I don't know, it's just somehow the idea of, or the work to get the banners approved just didn't happen. So since we're 5 of the 7 members on the EDA, thought it was most efficient to just bring it here. The EDA members, the other 2 EDA members have seen this, they like it, but there was no formal action taken by the EDA. There's money budgeted in the EDA budget for this, and maybe Jack can remind us of how much that is. I have estimate of costs, but there's a couple things I just wanted to make sure you understood that we're kind of looking at. So it's not just approving the banners that we like the best, which we've been talking about for years. It will be really nice to finally get some up there. But the other thing is that the logo on the banner becomes the new city logo. And the tagline becomes the new tagline. So currently our urban access, rural feel, whatever, I can't remember those, I can never remember it word for word, would become just north enough. And then this would guide us with any sort of future tourism or EDA sorts of marketing materials. And in addition, as Aaron said, we want the look of and the feel of the website to be harmonious with this, if this is what we decide to do. And that's why we're bringing up the website. The current website mock-up that they gave us is not at all like this. So it would not be good for us to get banners and then have the website look completely different and have 2 different taglines and things like that. So the 3 options that you see in front of you, I would like to have us decide which of the 3 we would like. Well, first of all, I'd like to get us to say, yes, we want to move forward with this updating our logo, updating our motto, and choosing a banner. That will start a series of other updates that we can do on a more time-phased basis, things like updating the logos on the trucks, updating the logos on the stationery, the checks, all the places that we've got our flags, things like that. So the first two examples have 3 or 4 different options. And the idea initially was, well, we could switch them out with the seasons, but I'm pretty sure Public Works is not going to be really wild with that idea. So the other option would be that you would have them sort of, going sequentially down the road. The first one just has sort of simple graphics within the letter C that kind of show, stars, something kind of fall-like, and the deer. The little arrow to the top is representing that North Star, or the not just north enough. The next one is the C with the little arrow, but just really colorful, abstract designs. And that would be the same ideas that they would be, kind of sequentially put down the road. And then the third one is just one single design. And this has the aurora and the star more obvious in here. And obviously we would just have that at all of the different places that there are posts. There are 10 posts along Kettle River. So we'd be looking at 10 banners for Kettle River. And then on Hornsby, there are 7, unless somebody's knocked one down since we took our last count. That tends to happen fairly frequently. The cost, if we go with the multiple designs, would be about $1,546 to print these. That would set total cost. If we go with just the single design, it's a little less expensive. It'd be $1,360. And so I guess the first question I have is whether or not the council feels comfortable moving forward with updating our logo, updating our tagline, and whether or not you would go along with what's being suggested here.
I mean, I like it, but would there be an opportunity for the citizens of Columbus to weigh in on what logo and they would choose?
Well, they kind of did with that survey. I mean, we didn't show pictures and stuff, but the information we got back from them is what resulted in this design and that tagline. We heard in multiple ways people saying, oh, I just know that as soon as I get to that Lionel Lake exit, I start feeling all the tension in my body, if they're heading north on 35, feel all the tension in my body kind of leave and I start to relax, kind of like it feels like when I go up north to my cabin or like it feels when you go up north. And so we just heard that over and over again, and that's kind of where we pulled that just north enough. The other thing is, as we were talking about branding and from a marketing standpoint, and at the time we were really looking at that northeast quadrant and thinking about, what kinds of development we might want there. The idea that the branding committee had was, what can we put there and what feel can we kind of generate that would pull people off the freeway in the same way that people get pulled off the freeway like at Hinckley. That's the last stop of sort of civilization before you get to go to the great up north. And we wanted to kind of upstage that northern border, like you're north enough when you're in Columbus. And now that we have some interest in that northeast quad again, I think it's even more important that we kind of settle on what we want to project there. So to your answer, I mean, we could certainly do that. It would slow things down, and I don't know that you're going to get people who like all of the different ones. I don't know it'll be that helpful.
Well, yeah, and that would be my follow-up question, or is that going to slow things down too much from a marketing standpoint? Because it really started out as a marketing.
And branding.
And now we're going to be putting on our city trucks and stuff. So it's moved further than that, it seems.
Well, that's kind of typically what branding does, though.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're starting a branding process, I mean, it ends up being the way that you identify your city or your product or whatever, and then you come up with the graphics that visually tie into that feel that you're trying to elicit.
Okay.
And from my perspective, we have to make a decision on website design.
Yes,
Or
that
we
is-
have to address the ADA compliance issues in some form, which is a redesign of the website. Now, the conversation I had with our web designer was if we decided on a design and then a year later decided on a new design, it was a minimum of $2,000 for them to redesign the website that we've already paid for. I don't want us to get into this cycle of waiting, because
Yeah.
we have to address that in some form, but you don't want to have inconsistent visuals and messages out there if at all possible. This might be that crossroads where if you make this decision, this is the right move for the next 3 years, and or at that point you could adjust.
Oh, thanks for that. That is true. That is a time-sensitive decision that has to be made.
Then we better pick the right one or we'll hear about it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if you pick the one that I like the best.
Can we adjust these a little?
How so?
Well, you take that one on page 21, and you look at just north enough. If I looked at a banner on Kettle River, you're probably never going to see that north enough. It just doesn't stand out.
Color.
It's just kind of, how big are these banners on the road?
They are, depending on where they're at, if they're on Kettle River, they would be 58 3/4 inches tall by 28 inches wide. And if they are on Hornsby, they would be 48.25 inches tall by 23 inches wide.
Say that one more time.
58 by 28 on Kettle River.
That's 6 foot. Isn't that 58 inches?
It's close to it. 60 inches is, no, 60 inches is 5 feet. So they're not small.
72.
Okay, all right, I didn't.
So Ron, you're saying basically if we were to use maybe that top part on 19, that kind of white against the blue because it would stand out more? Is
That's
that kind of
well, that's
what
what
you're
I'm
saying?
looking at.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
We can certainly, we can do whatever we want. I think this is just the recommendation of the designer, but, you can see in the other ones that have like the graphics, he's got the white against.
Yeah.
And so it does show up better. I don't think he would be opposed to doing that. He does what we ask him to do, so, but I trust his judgment on this. He's the designer. I don't know that the color of the wording was that important. So I like that idea because it would make it a lot, would make it stand out.
But the one you're looking at, Mayor, is that represents me up north.
The Aurora one?
The Aurora with the pine trees and the North Star, yeah.
Yeah, and that's my favorite too. And it also feels like it's not such a big departure from our current one with the pine trees and it feels kind of just a nice upgrade without it like turning everything upside down.
So if we have the decals on the side of it,
Well, there's our public feedback, right?
which color, which one they go with?
The Aurora.
Okay. Now, when these go on the side of the truck, is it just the bottom that says Columbus, or is it just above north,
I think it would be the whole thing.
the whole thing?
Yep.
Is that the way it goes?
I don't know. That's a good question. We can do it
use
however
whatever
we want.
components we want. If we agree to the design and then we pay for that design, it's ours. We can do what we want
Yep.
Okay,
to some degree.
Yep.
Then I was looking at, you turn the page over to the next page, 22, and you look at the logo we got right there, the one that we have currently. So that would go up in that corner, that
Yes,
Columbus?
the
like
C,
that?
the C would come up in that corner.
Let's see.
And then would it say like City of Columbus?
Yep.
We'd probably migrate to the more block format that's on the banner. It's more of a,
Yep.
as opposed to a Roman style that's on the current header of the page. But yeah, we would try and align all images, all city materials to be as close to these design elements as possible. So there's a consistent theme, look, feel, and flow once everything is complete.
And what would happen is that as there becomes a list of different things, letterhead, logos, decals, each one of those he'll redesign to fit the size that's going to be, and then optimize the colors and the fonts and things like that for clear visuals.
And to answer Janet's point that she brought up earlier, how much money is in the budget, I think there were $3,000 allocated for the banners. But to do the total conversion over on all the branding elements, it could be done over a period of 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
So it could be worked into the budget with minimal impact.
Yep. What do you think?
Yeah, so I was just kind of waiting. But as far as residents that weighed in, how many did we kind of get to weigh in, or was it just the EDA at the time? Because I think this project was started previous to me getting on council, and I kind of just got pushed off to the side with COVID, right?
That
what-
was the first thing that pushed it off to the side, and then, the big, Elizabeth leaving, and
Sure.
So
Well,
it
we
was-
had our issues.
a few other irons in the fire.
The survey data that I found stored here had 69 replies.
Okay.
And that was between the Columbus event and public input, that there wasn't a physical, a survey distributed, and there were responses received. Those were all organized into a readable form. So there was, I believe, 69 or 70 responses.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I like that on the graphic on page 21 does look similar to our original. I mean, it does just kind of flow nicely into an updated version, what it's worth.
I do got to throw out there, I still do like our logo currently, right? And I know I've shared that before.
Yeah.
But I guess if I had to compromise with you, I think I'm with this North Star with kind of the pine trees, and it's kind of a fresher version of what we had previously.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So,
we got the colors in the room already here
there you go. I know, I like
from the last sign.
So then I would move to direct staff to start drafting a list of elements that would need to be updated by adopting this design as our new logo and tagline. And then also a timeline for rollout and budget. We'll start with that motion first.
Is your motion including the design?
I'm going to do a second motion for that.
Okay.
So I need a second.
This is Jenny, I'll second.
Okay. Take over, Mayor.
It was seconded, right?
Yes.
Now, you say your motion one more time.
No. I was directing staff to create a list of elements that need to be updated with an updated logo and tagline, and then a budget that would go along with that and a timeline to roll it out.
All right, and it was seconded by Jennifer. Any discussion? Any comments? None? We'll take a vote. Jennifer?
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Janet, aye.
Rob, nay, and it's just based on, I would like to see it stay the same. So no disrespect to the work that was put in, but just still currently like that logo. So thank you.
Ron, aye.
Okay, then my second motion would be to adopt the design on page 21, the Aurora Star design as our new logo and tagline, just north enough.
This is Jenny, I can second.
We got a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Any comments?
Is, just so I'm clear, the motion is the exact design that's here, or do you want the flexibility to modify colors based on your previous discussion?
That's a really good point. So I'll amend the motion to include the suggested change of using white as the lettering on the just north enough and the years that are bracketing it.
And this is Jenny, I second the amended version.
Yep. Thank you for bringing that up.
All right, any discussion? Any comments? Having none, we'll take a vote. Jennifer?
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Janet, aye.
Rob, nay.
Ron, aye.
Okay, so I will bring that back. Staff will start doing their work. You'll probably be hearing more of this. And again, just to clarify, as these different elements get identified, he'll tweak the design to fit that. You guys will see that again, so.
You had a number and all that, 17?
Yeah, there's 10 posts on Kettle River and the City Hall, and then there's 7 on Hornsby.
There's none in the park at all?
There's no holders for them. That would have, you guys are going to have to start saving your pennies for that.
Well, I think we should buy more than 17, because those that,
We'll
I
have,
think, I don't even know if Jennifer was born or Rob when they blew off, but they haven't been there for, 20 years? 10 years?
So they were on the telephone poles along
Right.
Kettle River,
Yeah.
right?
We're-
Originally?
I think there was one there about 8 years ago. It was still hanging there.
yeah,
It's a little tattered.
Yeah,
They looked really out of
sad, really
place.
faded.
yeah, so I think we should order a little more than, well, unless
You can go back and order more.
We'll see what the
Yeah.
list provides,
Yeah.
and financially, maybe there's a package deal we can get if we get 20 as opposed to 17.
Right.
Right.
Maybe we can work something like that wholesale.
Well, we definitely know how much we have to spend now, so
Yeah.
I think, and it's actually good to have a few extra because, they will get destroyed by various
And
elements.
a couple will wind up in somebody's bedroom.
Pardon?
There'll be a few that may wind up in somebody's bedroom or garage.
Well, they'd have a pretty good pole to scale to get those down, but anyway, okay, great. Well, then, this is great. Thank you so much. I'm sure we're excited. Now we can we can pass this on to Janelle at
Website design,
Catalyst and
get moving.
on that.
Thank you, council.
Okay, no other comments on that number, on standard design? We'll go on to item number 5. Excuse me, Resolution 25-04, MNDOT purchase of city property / Lake Drive and Hornsby Street, pages 22 through 50.
I'd like to add a correction to that title, and it's not the purchase, it's the sale of.
Sale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Minnesota Department of Transportation is scheduled to start a reconstruction project on State Trunk Highway 97 this spring. The project will include a number of improvements such as raised median islands and a multi-use trail along the south side of Highway 97 that will provide access to the Hardwood Creek Regional Trail from the city of Columbus. In order to complete the project, MnDOT requires an expanded right-of-way and temporary easements of and on city property. MnDOT is proposing to purchase 1,487 square feet of unimproved city land at the intersection of Highway 97 and Hornsby Street for the right-of-way acquisition. A minimum damage acquisition report was conducted on May 6, 2024, appraising the valuation at 15 cents per square foot. MnDOT is proposing to pay $223 for the land. In addition to the land purchase, MnDOT is requesting to rent 144 square feet of unimproved city land in the form of a temporary easement until December 1st, 2028 for construction staging. The MDA provided a valuation of 18 cents per month for the temporary easements totaling $527. City staff recommends the approval of Resolution 25-304, a resolution approving the sale of real property and granting of a temporary easement to the Minnesota Department of Transportation for highway improvements to allow the construction of Highway 97. I'll pull up a photograph here. It'll show where these are in a little more detail. They're a very minimal input. Most of the acquisition is right in here, along with the temporary easement for storage, and there's a small piece right in here. So the offer for that sale, including the temporary easement lease, is a total of $750.
Oh, come on. What, can we say no?
Yeah, can we double it?
Mr. Mayor and
That's not
council
much.
member,
You can't even keep a straight face.
it's a little hard. I do remember, and we might want to look at this before we accept the offer.
Like
They
nothing.
paid us substantially more when the bridge went in and all that work was done. They had to take another
Yeah.
piece of right-of-way that's just as you go on northbound. I think it makes sense to at least look into that file, because I think it was certainly was closer to $1 a foot or a buck and a half a foot. This idea that it's worth less in fee title than than the rental, the monthly rental. It just, something doesn't jive, and I think we would have a basis. This is not a formal appraisal. It's kind of a memorandum. I think we would have a basis to say, now, wait a minute, the same agency on a very similar project paid us quite a bit more, and I think your arrow is about in the right place, just a little south of there, right? Yep, right in there. That was our land, and the MNDOT paid us for it, and it seemed to me it was more substantial. I could be wrong, but it's at least worth checking and asking the question, why is this at 15 cents a foot when that was?
Yeah. And I guess my question would be, is it really worth it to do that? Where the cursor is developable property. All this here is around the bank of a regional pond. The same with this over here, it's wetland. The big difference, and I understand your point on the real property, the reason the rental is so high, it's based on a monthly basis. The temporary easement would go through the construction project, but it would still be in effect until 2028. So it's only in place, though, for about 20 months. But
the other thing to look at, and I see if you remember this, Bill, we were talking about a monument sign. I thought that's where we were talking about putting it. And we held off on it until we knew what was really going to go there. But we should really look, if that's the spot we were going to put it, that might be another reason to, I can't remember if it was at that.
Closer to where
Hy-Vee was?
the arrow was previously, where MNDOT acquired the property.
Okay.
No, closer to the freeway. So if you just slide over, yeah, exactly, right in there. Because that came up when MNDOT acquired that. We said, oh, would we still have room to put the sign? And then we also talked to MNDOT about, we're going to put a sign there.
Right.
So,
and we got some sort of you can directive.
And I understand the administrator's comments because, there is a pond there. We can't really build anything there, and you like to have interagency cooperation. But I just, it did, when I read through this, the packet, it was like, really, $750? Because, the temporary easements usually garner more than that. Yeah. And this would be a fee. A simple thing would be just to say it came up at our council, and we think, at least doubling the 750 to call it 1,500, or something, would make sense. I think if you did look back in that file, you'd see that they paid us, thousands of dollars as opposed to 750.
Right.
They did provide some comps in their information on page 38 of the packet. One of them is a Columbus address. But that one appears to have come out at about a penny a square foot.
Well, I doubt that they're going to give you comps that is going to cost them more money. We don't.
Correct.
Yeah. But the other thing that, so you've got the interagency cooperation. This is an important public improvement project, and we don't want to be difficult. On the other hand, I've done enough of these negotiations with MNDOT where if you have a fairly nominal value and you double it, it doesn't really, it's not going to stop the project. And it may make you feel like you've done a better job representing your interests here in the community. So there's somewhere between 15 cents and whatever we might find in the file is a reasonable approach. That's just me as, I understand that, the engineer and the administrator, we've got to work with these agencies all the time, and so we don't want to be the thing that holds up the project.
I would think at least if we get 1,500, that would be enough to cover that cost of having to remove that light on Hornsby.
There you go. There you go.
That kept getting run over, right?
Yeah, at least 3 times.
Isn't that what you just spent on banners? So.
Yeah. I was just going to say, or we could buy a few more banners.
Extra banners.
Yep. So do you want to, you have a resolution here, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to just direct staff to look into this a little bit more? Is this super time sensitive?
Yes, it is very time sensitive.
I think, Mr. Mayor and Council, if I would suggest approval within a range between the offer and, $1,500, then that gives the administrator some ability to say, hey, we can get this done for $1,500. And trust me, MNDOT's not going to blink. They're not going to spend any time thinking about it between $750 and $1,500.
So we have to amend the resolution to
So
reflect that.
yeah, would we just add at the end, leaving a range between 750 and 1,500?
Yeah.
If you want, Mayor, I'd make that motion.
Well, everybody
Do
think
you,
that's the route to go? I see nodding heads,
yeah.
nickels and dimes, but who wants to say the motion?
Will, I move to approve Resolution -04, a resolution approving the sale of real property and granting the temporary easement to Minnesota Department of Transportation for highway improvements within the negotiating range of the said price of $750 and $1,500 for purchase of real property.
This is Scott, I'll second.
Having a motion on the floor, any discussion?
I just would clarify that it's Resolution 25-04. I know it's not in the motion, but.
Yeah, it wasn't on the,
Yeah.
any other discussion? Any motion? Rod, vote for it?
I would just add one thing, and we'll ask for $1,500, but we'll ask for $1,000 on the sale of the real property and leave the temporary easement cost of $500 the same, because that's the rental cost, if that works for you.
Yep,
Yep.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
All right, Rob, aye.
Janet, aye.
Scott, aye.
Jenny, I.
And Ron, aye. We could have held it over, though. I'm talking about that Hornsby. We could
Yeah,
say, you give us that, we'll give you this. Item D, consultant liaison and staff reports. Number 1, city engineer, Hornsby Street Project, pages 51 through 52. Brian?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. The request before you this evening is to approve an expenditure of approximately $18,000 for temporary wetland credits associated with the trail improvements along Hornsby, Eureka project. There's about 3,000 square feet of trail impacts on the wetlands that are going to require mitigation, and it's not eligible for the local road government replacement program. So that will have to be acquired through the wetland mitigation replacement, and that's a 2-to-1 replacement. So the 3,000 becomes 6,000 square feet of wetland banking. And the costs are associated in the memo here, and it's about $18,000. That's the immediate request this evening for council consideration. And I think also the administrator would like to start talking about Plan B in the event the state bonding money doesn't become available for the project. With that, I'd stand for any questions the council may have.
and I'll follow up on Brian's statement there. Assuming that the bonding bill is not approved to fund our segment of the project, I think that we need to decide, are we going to commit to it? And if we do, we're going to have to come up with local funds to do that. So if we don't get the bonding bill, we'll have to use some of our own money to complete the project. So I think there was a good analogy made when this was presented last year that it would be a shame to leave this gap with the improvements on the Forest Lake side and a quarter of a mile where Columbus begins back to where the old project stopped. So do we want to commit to this to use local funds if the bonding bill is not approved?
I have a question. How time sensitive is this? Do we have time to work our way through this, or do they need an answer by some date?
For the wetland permit,
Yes.
last meeting, we just extended it out 60 days for the review period, so we probably do have another 2 weeks or so. But at some point, they will need to know if it needs to be included in that permit or if they're going to need to resubmit and apply again.
So now this is a question for Bill. Remember that meeting we had with Rice Creek when we were trying to get them to give us back the wetland credits that they promised us? Is this something we could go back? Because I think where we ended up is, well, if you have a project, you can come back and ask for it. So rather than paying money to buy these things, could we just exercise that option to go back and say, here's what we'd like?
That, Mr. Mayor and council member, that was my question in my mind, that they said, come to us when you have a project. We have a very specific project, and I think it'd be appropriate to test whether that was a solid commitment or kind of a vague commitment.
Yeah, I agree.
And this is in the area that would be Browns Creek.
Yep, it's Rice Creek.
Yep.
And it wasn't that long ago, right?
No, it was
About a
within a
year, maybe?
year, yeah. So I don't know where that puts you in terms of your timeline, but I surely would like to try that rather than, because who knows what's going to happen with the funding. I mean,
Yeah.
we're trying to cover options. We actually have 2 bills in.
And Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, I think if we waited until our next council meeting to approve this, we still wouldn't lose our place in the processing of this, and it would still fit within their timeline, so we're not going to get left out of it.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor and Council, and Brian, if you want, I can direct you to some of that,
Okay.
that record of this
Yeah.
discussion. It was about a year or so ago, maybe a year and a half. But anyway, there was the ultimate conclusion of that is, let's see what you have in terms of a project, and then we'll see if the credits apply.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Did Rice Creek respond that quick to these issues?
I think they should be able to respond very quickly as to whether they would be able to honor what their commitment was. And if we get that, then I think we're going to be able to forward that on to Forest Lake. And the way this is going to work anyways, Forest Lake would pay for all of it up front, and then they would bill us for that $18,000 once it's done. So if we don't get the money in 2 or 3 weeks, we're still okay. Or in any event, we'd get reimbursed from it.
Can I ask one other question? So is our share of this prorated on the number of square feet of our road versus their road? Is that how they did it?
Well, it's actually our actual impact to the wetland for both the road and the trail. They're 2 separate impacts, about the same. The road is covered by the banking program, but we have to do something with the trail impact.
Okay.
So it's our actual trail. It's not prorated based on length. It's actual impact.
Okay.
So should we go ahead with this motion then?
If you want to, we can table that until the next meeting, until we find out what the situation is with these credits.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a question on this topic too. So that additional impact, is that because we're looking at extending that trail to our county line? Is that the idea, or is it for the already existing trail that's there?
No, it's from the existing trail to our north
Okay.
city limits.
So do we know if Forest Lake's planning on to continue that trail
They
up
are.
to? They are?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Cool. That'd be great.
I know.
Oh.
It is.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll put this on the table then, Jack, until next meeting.
Yes.
We'll go to the
Lake's gonna have a
item
lot of
number 2, City Attorney. Bill?
Mr. Mayor and Council, just a quick legislative update. 2 of our members are up to date because they were at the legislature yesterday. On behalf of the city, Mayor Hanegraaff testified in the Senate Transportation Committee about the North Hornsby project. Senator Kroon was great to get us in the mix. He had 3 projects up in a row and included the North Hornsby project. And it went well. They laid it over for inclusion, possible inclusion, which is the right action. That's what we wanted. So that would be possible inclusion in a bill that would be the bonding bill ultimately. So that went well. In addition, we have language being drafted at the direction of Senator Kroon with regard to fiscal disparities. The bill would be the version that's an Anoka County only bill, so it wouldn't involve cities all over the metropolitan area. The thinking in the strategy with Senator Kroon is that, in this tight budget year, that's probably best. Kind of like a pilot project to see if it works out for our community, then other communities could possibly seek the same type of legislation. So we think that's the right way to go. We'll be seeing that draft legislation shortly. I think the jackets were being prepared as we were there yesterday. And then we also have, as part of our day on the Hill, we're going to have a little sidebar with the county. Their legislative and our legislative agenda don't exactly align, and so we want to see if we can get some alignment. Senator Kroon not only suggested the meeting, but will host the meeting, which we think is a good idea. And that won't be the entire council. It'll probably be a couple of you, rather than having the entire council and 2 commissioners. We thought it'd probably be a little smaller meeting. So some segment, a half-an-hour segment of that day on the Hill will be this county to city meeting hosted by Senator Kroon. And the request will be, since our bill does not affect the bill that we're proposing does not affect the pool. It has no impact on the pool. I'm saying that for the record. It has no impact on the pool, and therefore we would expect them to be neutral or supportive, and so that's what we're really looking for.
So I'll just mention, I had Jack pass out your updated talking points and the maps, so all of you have a copy of kind of what we, I should say what Ron presented in his testimony, only he did it much more eloquently than these talking points. The other thing I will just mention too is that we got an updated chart from the county showing what the impact of fiscal disparities in these last 2 years have been to Columbus. Yeah, so you want to pass that around. So this is something we used last year when we were at the legislature trying to get some relief from this. Zoom in on the 2025 impact. That's how much tax dollars we lose to fiscal disparities, just as the city. So almost $500,000 in this year is going to go out of our hands and into the hands of other cities in the metro area. And it's going to continue to get worse as we work to keep our tax rate low and increase our commercial development. Those are the 2 drivers for that number. So hopefully we get some attention this year. It just gets worse every single year.
Is that all you have, Bill?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to the council report. Jennifer, do you have items?
I do have a few items. So on 2/24, so this past Monday, I went and attended the Coon Creek Watershed meeting. They were excited to see representation there, so that was great. One point to mention that I'll talk to Jim about when I see him next, or I will shoot him an email on this. They have a water quality cost share award program. And for 2025, they have $290,000 in available cost share funds and only $53,000 in approved applicants. So they have this vast amount of money for projects. And I know that we are just a small portion of Coon Creek compared to some of the other cities, but for what this is, they do think that we have some opportunities. So I will talk to Jack and Jim about that. And their next meeting is on March 10th. And then yesterday we had a Fall Fest meeting, kind of our kickoff meeting. And tentative dates that we, I think, decided on for Fall Fest were September 19th through the 21st. And noting that some organization's going to happen over the next few weeks to try to get that set. And a huge thanks to Lynn, Jack, Janet, Aaron, Lori, and Gina for helping us get this started. Did I miss anything, Janet?
No? Well, you're co-chair.
Oh, yes, I forgot that part.
You and Lynn are co-chair.
Lynn and I are co-chairing this year with the support of Janet as well.
Is that it, Jennifer?
Yes, that's it.
Scott, do you have anything?
The Thursday, February 20th Cable Commission meeting was canceled, so I don't have anything to share with on the Cable Commission. And that's all I have.
Okay. Want to go to Rob real quick?
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Janet?
I have a couple of things real quick. We had a Sunrise River WMO meeting on the 20th. We adopted passed the budget for 2026, and you will be seeing that at the next meeting. You were going to see it at this meeting, but The other thing that we did is we adopted a proposed change to the joint powers agreement. And what that means is that has to go back to the 4 cities, and then we have to ask for approval to adopt or to make that change. And they kind of go hand in hand. So the change to the JPA that we we're discussing has to do with how we treat certain expenses. So the language in the JPA kind of bundles expenses into two buckets. One is operational, one is non-operational. The operational expenses get allocated to each of the 4 cities through a formula of how much land and water we have and how much impacted we are by the work that they do. The other one is more like a fixed cost, so then those are just broken up, 25% each. As we are looking towards the update of the water management plan, that's a fairly significant expense. It's about $50,000 to $60,000 to do that, and we've started budgeting for that. But that's not come up since we've updated the JPA, and so the question is, how do we treat that expense? Is that an operational expense, or is that a non-operational expense? And currently, it's not really addressed, and there's difference, depending on who you are and how much you have to pay. You might feel one way or the other. So we need to get that clarified and expenses like that clarified so that they can make that change in the JPA. So because that will impact how much, depending on how a city votes on that, that will impact how much they will have to pay. We thought it made sense that the overall budget and that JPA amendment go hand in hand. And so we're just drafting the memo that goes along that explains the JPA amendment, and then you'll see both of those at the next meeting. And we already talked about the fiscal disparities thing, and so I just wanted to call your attention to the table because it was shocking to me. And I know, Rob, you certainly can take that with you. I would just ask that you don't show it to anybody. I feel like we need to have that meeting with Anoka County before this gets out to anybody else. So keep it under wraps until then. That's it.
Right. Well, thank you. I just want to report that I told you last meeting that I was going to open up the council for a couple hours after the Lions pancake breakfast on February 16th. And I'll let you know we had about 4 people came in within those 2 hours. One discussed Potomac, the construction on Potomac. The others kind of talked about some veterans in our city. But it was pretty good for not being advertised. We got a lot of people that stopped in that just thought it was nice to have it open. Going to do it again on the 16th of March, and Janet is going to join me on that day. And this isn't, I guess what I'm trying to develop or not, it isn't for the mayor, it's for us. So Janet's going to come on the 16th. There's one on April 13th. If any the council members want to sign up, just let me know. And then they start up again in September. But I think we get this on our website. It's a door opening for our constituents to talk to us. And it was pretty interesting. A lot of them just walked by and they just talked about the trumpeter squads or swans or whatever. But it was interesting. They enjoyed that part. Also, I want to thank Senator Michael Kroon, our senator, for this last meeting we had down at the legislature. And I want to thank Bill and his staff and Margaret. It's kind of different when you sit up there and testify, because here we're looking for the people in the public out there, we're looking to get $762,000 for our section of the road where Eureka and Hornsby Street meet up, and that's right by Clear Lake. Well, we've got people ahead of us, and they give you a little time limit. $50 million for this bridge, $30 million for this bridge, and I know we were the smallest ones there, but I thought we, like Senator Kroon and like Bill said, just showing that we showed up, I think made an impression on the 14 people, or 14 senators that were there, because there were some that were not included, if I'm right, Bill, wasn't there?
Yeah.
The first couple.
Yeah, they didn't get carried through.
So when they're not included, they're not
They're
No,
dead.
but you're out
They're dead in the
the door.
water.
Yeah. Another thing I like to thank them. They did a great job and made us feel a little more comfortable. Real quick, several weeks ago, we talked about signs on the doors out here, Janet. Mm-hmm. And at a meeting?
Yep.
And Jim said they were out there. Well, I've been looking now for a month and a half, and I still don't see
He
them.
put one up. He snuck one up by the.
Snuck it up.
Yeah, because it wasn't there before, because we all went out there and looked, and there was no sign there. But he did put one up by the senior center. But I have to say, the arrow points down to it's kind of like one of these things. It says Senior Community Center, and then it points down towards Kettle River. It doesn't point to the door. So I still think we need to remedy that.
Well, I don't know. Is this a discussion we can talk about right now, Jack? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What about doing something like they do at the schools? Number them 1, 2, 3, and
Well-
you could tell somebody on the door, well, number 3 is meet me at the senior center. That's door number 3.
Yeah, you
Or
could do
number
that.
2 is the
Yeah.
council chambers, so 1 is the city office.
Mr. Mayor, we had that discussion. However, each one of these doors has a different address.
Yeah.
They're separate actual physical addresses.
So maybe we
So-
put the address on each door?
The address is on the overhang on top of each doorway.
But it'd be so much easier telling
I believe
somebody,
so.
wouldn't it? I mean, to me, instead of stop at 18362 Kettle River Boulevard, that's the door you come in. No, what was that number? Where you could go 1, 2, or 3, but we can leave that and go till the next one. Think about it, or next.
Well, I mean, there was, I can't remember, was it you, Aaron, who brought up the public safety side of it? Yeah, that having them numbered is the way that first responders kind of, so there's a reason to do it the way you're suggesting. I don't care. I want there to be something so that people, when you ask them to meet you at the community center, they aren't walking around trying to figure out which door they go in, and everyone they try is locked.
Right.
And to all your point, like on council meeting nights, sometimes we're walking in and the only way people know where to go is because they see us
Yeah.
going in, right?
Yeah.
Where's the meeting at?
Yeah, there needs to be
know.
a sign that says council chambers
Yeah.
or something.
Right.
City offices, community center.
Can we technically have the address listed in an honorary door number 1, 2, or 3 as well? I mean, for what it is, being
Yeah.
reasonable and practical about it, I think would be refreshing.
Yeah, I don't know the theory behind, well, I think I do, the buildings were not connected at some point, so they each needed an independent address. And then the annex was built in between that now connected them and made them all one structure.
Yep.
But they still remained with the independent addresses for whatever reason, so.
And I think it's just 2 different addresses, not 3.
Yeah, that could be.
I don't think it's on this one. It is on the
Senior center.
Community Center.
Yep,
And that one is 16319.
whatever.
This one is 16321, so.
So really, the postal service is the only one that needs the address. Everybody else can go with the door number, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, they got one post mailbox out there. One for all.
So even they don't need the
I
address.
mean, it's something to think about if.
Well, I just think, I like the idea of actually using words than numbers, just because, again, if somebody's coming because they are going to testify and they see council chambers, everybody knows what that means. Certainly, you could direct people, if you're talking to them, door number 2, but I think if they're not being directed by anybody and they're just showing up, it just is more clear for the public.
Yeah, I think it'd be better to title them rather than have a number. A number sounds like a game show.
And you can put the sign or the lettering on the door, if you can't find a place to put it next to it or above it, so.
Can you look into that, Jack?
We can look into that, yes.
Thank you. Now, since I'm rattling here,
Look at that list of things you have.
well, I had a whole list, but I want to thank Janet for coming down to the Capitol to sitting before the Transportation Committee. It's kind of intimidating because you got all the big wheels there and stuff like that. And Janet helped write up, it's kind of different. They read it more than say it. In other words, they sit and read what they're going to say, which brings me into another thing. Several weeks ago, we talked about timing people at our open forums. Well, they time you there. But it's kind of interesting. This is the way I thought we came to an agreement, is when they timed it, I think it was 3 minutes, wasn't it, Bill?
3.5 maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and you can hear the buzzer go off while you're talking. But they don't interrupt you, they don't stop you, they let you go. And I think I brought up a comment in the end. I said, I thought I heard the buzzer ring, you know? And their response was, yeah, but you're on a roll, you're coming to an end. And, you know, they allowed it. And I hope that's the way we operate here. You know, if we get into that situation, you know, sometimes they're stressful, you got a lot of angry people or whatever, and you want to cut them off. Or you, like I made the comment about the guy with the satchel coming in with 12,000 sheets of paper and starting to read things, you know. So I thought that was pretty interesting to see that. The last thing I want to say is I won't be able to make that meeting next week at the Capitol, but I hope everybody goes to it. It's very enjoyable. I'm going to be out. I might make it. It just depends. I'm going to have some surgery done, and if I get myself together, I'll show up. But I'm not coming in a wheelchair, and there ain't going to be no walker. So.
Mr. Mayor and Council, for that reason, Mayor Hanegraaff, if you designate somebody to go in your stead, particularly to the Anoka County meeting, I just don't want to have, you know, them feel like we're overwhelming them with the full council. So it'd probably be the deputy mayor and somebody else.
Yeah.
Maybe that's you, Rob, since you're comfortable around the Capitol. I'll leave that to the, you know, to the mayor to decide. But just, you know, just so we know kind of who's going in, we can tell Senator Kroon's assistant that here's who will be at that meeting.
How many of you, well, Rob, you always go, right? You'll be down there. Janet?
Oh, yeah.
Scott, you going to make it?
Yep.
And
I
Jennifer?
don't believe so, no.
Okay, all right, so you got those three. Well, if you get at Bill's and he gives you a sandwich, kind of throw one in the car for me.
We'll save our cookies for you.
Well, there you go, there you go. I have nothing more to say. We'll go on to item number 4, Personnel Committee Report.
So this is just a quickie. Did you want me to, Aaron, you were there too, so do you want me to do the update?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we haven't talked about what the Personnel Committee's been up to lately, so we thought we would just let you know that we haven't been sitting on our hands. So remember we authorized the city to contract with DDA to do a compensation survey. We saw the first glimpse of that yesterday, and I was pretty impressed with what they had collected so far. So what they've done is they have all of our job descriptions, and they went out and looked at cities that they thought were similar to Columbus in size and structure, et cetera. And then they called them and got their minimum, maximum, and actual salary information for their positions that were the same as ours. So city administrator, assistant city administrator, public works director, down the line. And so they've put that all together in a big table. And what we did yesterday is we looked at the cities that they had selected to include in our survey, and we talked about whether some of them made sense or not. We made some suggestions for adding a few more that we thought they hadn't included but should. And so they're working on all of that information now. And then we also talked about, you know, what our compensation philosophy would be, and you'll be hearing more about that because there's lots of different ways of looking at it, and other goals associated with your philosophy, and depending on what your goals are, would depend on what kind of system they set you up for. So they've done a lot of good work, and we are, I guess, on track to getting it to a point where we can have our discussion at it. Is it the April workshop meeting? That's when you guys are going to see all of the fruits of our labor. So just wanted to let you know that we were on that. And there's a number of other things that the Personnel Committee's been working on. Aaron's been working hard on the update of the handbook, which is no small task. It hasn't been updated like for 30 years. So it's it has a lot of things that need to be modernized, so to speak. And we have been working like never ending on updating all the job descriptions and making them consistent and all that sort of stuff. So you were there, Rob. Ron, did I miss anything?
No, you did everything correctly.
Perfect. That's it.
Right off the notes I had here. You finished now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We're going to go on to number 5, which would be Jennifer, the Planning Commission report, but I think they canceled
They canceled, so the next meeting will be then next week,
next.
Wednesday, and I think you have it listed down in
You're right,
announcements.
March 5th.
March 5th.
Do you want to announce our new planning commissioner? Did we do that already?
I don't know if we did or not. Kim.
Kim Snell.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Last meeting.
So she'll be at the next one, yep. We did her orientation, I think that's why it's in my head.
Okay.
We just did her
She was at the
orientation.
last council meeting.
Yep.
That's right. We introduced her. That's right. We're going to item number 6, Park Board's report and Park Master Plan update. If I'm right, Jack?
Eleanor Hahn is working on our Parks Master Plan. She and I met with the Parks Board Subcommittee for the Master Plan on Monday. Eleanor reviewed with the subcommittee member, there was only one present, the rough draft, the outline of all the graphics, the maps, the charts, what the components of it are going to be, and she's off to a good start on that, and we hope to have something done hopefully by the end of summer on that. Once that's completed, it will help us too in our attempt to find grant funds. Usually that's what they look for. They want a plan that's going to show what the long-range parts of this are. There will be a budget and a financial aspect of it. So this will enable us to have a much better chance when we apply for grant funding for some of these projects to be eligible for it and be considered.
Thank you, Jack. Item number 7 is the Public Works report, and Jim isn't here tonight, so you don't have anything for us, do you, Jack?
No.
We'll go on to item number 8, the City Administrator's report.
And I have nothing further to add on that.
Okay. Then we go to the reminders, item E, announcements and reminders. City Council Workshop, March 4th, 2025. That starts at 5:30. Planning Commission meeting, March 5th, 2025 at 6 p.m. City Council City Day on the Hill, March 6th, 2025. That's noon to 4 p.m. And then City Council meeting on March 12th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Item number F is we're going to close the session. In other words, City Council meeting will be closed to consider offers to purchase city-owned real property identified as PIN 24-32-22-12-0005 and PIND 243222110006 pursuant to this Minnesota State Statute, Section 13D.05, Subdivision 3, parentheses C, line 3. So we're going to close the session so everybody has to, sorry, John, you got to leave.
Don't take it personal.